I'm excited actually. This is gonna be a really good show. Hopefully sustain a nice show that people can get a lot of value from and get a lot of content and good information that can help them. And when I say help them, I mean the grassroots goalkeepers, people that we serve at the grassroots level. We're not with any club teams, college teams, pro teams. We have to build everything from the ground up. Everything is work, everything is merit. That's what makes our journey so beautiful. With that journey comes lots of challenges, lots of ideas, lots of opinions, lots of things that most other environments probably don't have to deal with, but we do. How do I get the message out to some of my parents who are learning for the first time, who are going through this maze, who are constantly being bombarded with new trends and new social media and new this, new that, the shiny object syndrome? How do I help them? This is how I'll help you. Stay tuned. How you doing? This is Coach Gabe. Thanks for tuning in. Today I want to talk about a subject that I find really dear to my heart with some of my students that are at the grassroots level. And it's about risk taking. Risk taking is interesting. Some people have a higher tolerance to take more risks. Some people are very conserved in the goal and they take less risks. And there's a lot of different reasons why certain students take more risks than others. So how are we asking ourselves when to take risks? When can we take risks? When are they talked about? How are we, expressing our moment to have certain understandings of ourselves to take risks? There's some kids out there who are taking risks all the time, and there's some kids who are not taking risks. And it's an interesting dynamic that we definitely want to talk about today. One of the reasons why some goalkeepers don't take as many risks is because maybe they've misjudged a situation in the past, which put them in a very cloudy frame of thought, right? A good, confident goalkeeper who's very technically, who's consistently working on their technical skills and constantly doing certain things on a weekly basis, will feel very confident at games, or at least to start to ascend into confidence. Then they can start taking a little bit more risk because they know themselves much better. So, misjudging certain plays is one of those things where, you mistimed the ball, and then you went for a ball hands down, and all of a sudden maybe a player took a touch, they beat you, and all of a sudden now there's a goal, right? So that puts you in a state of, okay, I'm going to minimize my risks, which is interesting because, as a youth level, we need to start taking more risks. We have to start finding out in those moments, what happened wrong or what we could have done to assess those moments to make our play better. If coming out was the moment, or if staying in was the moment, or the decision to make. Misjudging definitely minimizes our ability to take risks, and we should definitely keep an eye on that. Another reason why a lot of people and goalkeepers at every level have a tough time taking risks is sometimes the communication with your team is not as clear, or it's not as abundant, right? We're not communicating back and forth. So taking a risk in a certain moment where maybe a player is on a striker and you're going to come out and take a risk when maybe that player was going to try to defend the ball in a particular way. Those are moments that also take away from your risk taking. Maybe you made a bad play with a player on your team without communicating the risk, and maybe it was also not a tactical situation that your coach wanted you to do. So this risk taking, you can see how it can compound to less risk taking if you're not communicating thoroughly with your goalkeeper or with your players on the field. We want to, if we're going to take a risk, whether it's getting a ball from in a range that you're uncomfortable getting, or coming off the line to go get a ball hands down, based on a 50-50 play. If you're going to come, or even making a save into a place that you've never saved it before. Some people consider that a risk because they've never, they don't feel like confident enough to get to that play. But it's not a risk. These are moments that you're learning about yourself. Risks give you an understanding of yourself and understanding about certain situations that can provide you more detailed knowledge and more experience for the future. A third reason why young goalkeepers don't take as many risks in games is because they have an inexperience that they hold close. They are thinking about things too much, or maybe they've gotten scored on in a particular way, which minimizes their confidence, or they haven't had as many games as they need to in order to get comfortable in the game setting. And so they in order for them not to be yelled at or to be criticized or critiqued by players, they minimize doing certain activities or certain risk-taking moments, so that way they feel like they're not putting their team or themselves in a situation where they are getting scored on. This risk-taking creates the experience, right? So maybe you should have a conversation with your coach, because some coaches are more risk tolerant based on your situation. I want to talk a little bit more about risk tolerance with coaches in a second. Okay, but your inexperience, your lack of risk taking is also contributing to your inexperience as well, right? Maybe we're not taking as many risks during certain important games, but there's got to be a time and place where you're taking way more risks than you're expecting yourself to. Okay, these are important things that every goalkeeper should be told at a coaching level, and also learning about them in order for them to learn about themselves. One of the biggest characteristics I see in someone who's a risk taker as a goalkeeper is somebody who is very confident, or even overly confident. They believe in their abilities. They're constantly pushing barriers and limitations at practice. They're constantly doing things that most normal kids or most normal goalkeepers aren't necessarily doing. You can tell they have a personality about them. But, and the difference with them is that even when they take the risk and it doesn't work out in their favor, they still shrug it off to experience. They still shrug it off to, well, it was a risk. They knew it themselves. It was a risk. I took it, right? Most kids don't know they're taking a risk during certain plays. And in goalkeeping, you have to put yourself out there. There's a big vulnerability. If you don't take the risk and learn from these experiences, you are going to have less experience in certain moments. I'm not saying to be carelessly taking risks. That's not the overall mission of this conversation. What I'm saying to you is, at a young age, there has to be a time where you can feel free about how you play and the risk taking you can take in the games, right? Whether it's a distribution, some kids don't even want to distribute the ball, because in their mind, there's risk in that, right? What if you wanted to distribute it in a particular way, it didn't work out? Now you feel very vulnerable, because now there's an idea about you someone who can't distribute a ball, right? There's risk in that, because there's a vulnerability, and we have to be okay with youth goalkeepers taking these risks. I know coaches out there who don't allow their keepers to take goal kicks because for them, there's a risk in that, right? And obviously rules have changed, and it's happening more and more. So I see some of these coaches out there. I'm really proud of you guys who are really allowing their keeper to take, to be that person who takes these kicks, who's able to distribute the ball, because that's something that's definitely fundamental to all goalkeepers, skill set. So, taking these risks, and having a conversation with your keepers too, right? If you're a coach out there, and you see your keeper is kind of quiet, kind of reserved, isn't coming out, isn't as as assertive to certain situations, they might have an understanding of vulnerability, right? We want to get them comfortable with that level of vulnerability. We want to communicate to them, hey, don't be vulnerable. Everybody's taking risks. Some of them will be rewarded, right? But we will never know until you actually take these risks that they will be rewarded, and we will learn from them, right? But if winning and winning and winning is the only thing, which it's important, if it's the only thing, then you're going to ask a goalkeeper to take risks, and they're not going to feel comfortable taking risks when they should be at a young age, right? And then learning from those risks and then moving forward. Here's another idea of what I think about risks as well. It's funny because I went to a game recently and I saw a situation, right? One keeper is a designated goalkeeper. They're in the game. They're playing further back than they should. They're not understanding their own spatial awareness in comparison to their last line of defense. So you could tell they don't want to be scored on from a distance. They're feeling not uncomfortable, but cautious, very cautious, right? And, so that's the way they are interpreting the game. That's the way they are, attending their games. And it's in a cautious way, which is normal. When you're kind of a seasoned goalkeeper or becoming more seasoned, you become more cautious, right? On the other side of the field, I see a younger kid, and he's taking a younger goalkeeper, and he's taken out of the game. And they put in, a random kid on the field into the goal. And this keeper has no expectations, has no, it's just fun for them. It's just, there's zero accountability in the situation. So they're not thinking like a seasoned goalkeeper would, right? The kid's making save after save. He's taking risks coming off the line. He's jumping he's jumping into big dives. He's having fun. You can tell in his face, there's a flow coming out of him. And these risk taking, that's just happening so abundantly, right? He's getting scored on here and there, but he's not taking it personal in any sense of the matter. You see this, maybe you have a player on your team who always tells you, oh yeah, I'll be in the goal. They hop in the goal for practice, and maybe they make a couple awesome saves, and you're like, that's great, but they haven't actually felt the endurance of the role, right? In the critical 90-minute 0-0 tie-breaking moments, right? And so they don't understand like the weight. They don't understand that weight. They probably will never understand that weight. Only a goalkeeper who's been doing this will really understand that kind of weight. And however, one thing that they benefit from is they don't have that risk. They're not risk averse. They come out and they're doing things differently, and they're actually making quality plays because they're playing with the lack of fear and a lack of knowledge that something bad can happen. They don't feel that knowledge that something bad will occur to them. That's how they feel. And you could tell that goalkeeper or that player that became the goalkeeper, became, just every play they were getting more confident. And it was funny. I was laughing at the whole situation because I'm like, man, like here we are with some of our kids, and they are designated goalkeepers, and they don't want to take the same amount of risk. But what are we doing? Why can't we treat our goalkeepers very similar in certain ways, right? We want certain things to look right, or is it a vanity, right? Let's not be vanity. Let's not have a lot of vanity in goalkeeping. Let's minimize those things at the grassroots level, and give our students that comfort, to take the risk. At practices, they should be taking the risk. Coaches, let them know, hey, if there's a ball that's outside the area and range in the air, try and get it. Let's talk about it after. Go for it. If there's a ball, the decision you need to make that's kind of loose in certain areas, you don't need to stay back. Go for it. Or have that conversation. Like having a consistent conversation about risk taking gives that goalkeeper a sense of comfort, knowing that you are part of their risk taking endeavor, right? For goalkeeping, and knowing, hey, maybe we don't take those kind of risks during an important game, but we take those risks in these moments, or at least I have an understanding what you're gonna do, so that way nobody's fooled or nobody's lacking knowledge in those moments where they're taking a risk. As we get better and we start to refine our skills and we develop a bigger reputation, it becomes harder to take risks, because now you're thinking about your ego, you're thinking about the reputation that you've created, you're thinking about the things that have put you to this place. And is risk-taking part of that characteristic? I'm not sure. We see a bunch of goalkeepers from the 90s, the Jorge Camposes, the Higuitas, the Chilaverts. These are guys, from the 90s who are really just shooting goals, playing on the field, doing things that mostly other goalkeepers aren't necessarily doing, and getting a lot of attention for it, right? And they took plenty of risks, right? But that was part of their characteristic as a player. The stakes are bigger now. I say, they've always been big, but the stakes are bigger, and there's also more criticism on the position, and there's also more of a thing that we're doing to our goalkeepers, like systematically making them more systematic for certain positional plays. But where is the place where they can find their originality? Where is the place that they can find a certain level of risk that they can take, right? Everybody has a form of expression when it comes to goalkeeping. Everybody has an originality about them. And where aren't we harnessing those risk-taking moments at a young age? Because it doesn't matter. Those games, they all lead to your future self, and it matters then, right? And a goalkeeper who's completely systematic, that takes zero risks at all, that's labeled great. That's labeled good, right? However, certain plays require certain intuitions and certain improvisations that only a risk taker can manipulate, and only a risk taker can overcome. All right. So with that being said, take your risks, get your rewards. Coach Gabe, I'm out.